Welcome to episode 4 of the Rewire. I am your host, Vanara Loch. Now, you have done the hard part of the last 3 episodes. You named survival mode. You mapped the cycles running underneath your daily life. You felt honestly what staying there is costing you. And so the next question arrives naturally. If I know all of this, if I can see the pattern clearly, why has my life not changed yet? And here is what I know. That question is not a sign of failure. It is the most important question you can ask, because the answer changes everything about how you approach change from this point forward. Most people believe that if they understand something deeply enough, their life will change. They read the books, they watch the videos, they have the insights, they feel the shift, and then they wake up the next morning and live mostly the same way they did before. And they wonder, what is wrong with me? But here is the thing, nothing is wrong with you. You are simply missing one piece, the piece that turns understanding into a lived reality, the piece that closes the gap between seeing and becoming. That piece is identity. And today, we go into that completely. Now, I want to start with what identity actually is, because most people think of identity as a feeling, a sense of self, something you discover by looking inward long enough. But listen, that is not what identity is, not in the way that actually changes a life. Tony Robbins teaches that identity is not a feeling, it is a title, an adjective. It is the answer to the question, who are you known as? Not what do you do, not what have you achieved. Who are you known as? To yourself first. He says, your identity is the story you tell about yourself, the standards you hold yourself to, and the person you believe yourself to be at your core. And everything in your life, every decision, every action, every relationship organizes itself around that identity, whether you chose it or not. That last part is what most people miss, whether you chose it or not. And so the most important question is not who do you want to become? It is who did you become without realizing it? What identity are you currently living from? And did you choose it, or was it chosen for you? Let me share something personal with you. When I look back at the identity I was living from for most of my adult life before 2026, I can see it clearly now. I was someone who had been hypnotized, not by one person, not by one moment, by a system, by society's rules and standards and expectations about what a successful life looks like, what a woman should be, what success means, what is realistic and what is not. I did not choose that identity, I absorbed it. The way a child absorbs language, without filter, without critical evaluation, without any sense that there was another option. And because I was living from that identity, every decision I made came from it. Stay in the career that society says is stable. Do not take the risk that has no guarantee. Do not show your face because you are not beautiful enough. Do not need people because needing people is dangerous. Those were not my decisions. They were the decisions of someone I had become without knowing I had a choice. And what that taught me was this: you cannot change your life by changing your actions, not permanently, not deeply, because your actions always follow your identity. Change the identity, and the actions follow naturally. And here is what I believe. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change their actions while leaving their identity completely untouched. They wonder why they keep sliding back, why the new habit does not stick, why the motivation fades. And the answer is always the same. The action was new, The identity was old, and the old identity always wins. Not because it is stronger, because it is faster, because it has decades of neural circuitry behind it. Now, I want to talk about something that took me years to understand, something I wish someone had told me the moment I first woke up. Seeing is not becoming. Understanding is not integration. Having an insight is not the same as living from it. And the gap between those two things, between the moment of seeing and the reality of becoming, is where most people spend years of their life without knowing why they are still there. Let me share another story with you. In 2019, something happened to me. I went through heartbreak, real heartbreak, the kind that cracks you open. And in that cracking open, I found Eckhart Tolle. I found Viktor Frankl. I found stillness. I found meditation. I felt something shift inside me at a level I had never experienced before. I understood clearly, deeply, that life was about giving and helping others, that there was more to existence than survival and achievement, that I was here for something, and then I waited for my life to change. It did not in the way I expected, not in the way the insight seemed to promise. And for years, I did not understand why. I had seen something real. I had felt something true. I had been genuinely awoken, and yet the daily reality of my life, the patterns, the reactions, the choices, kept pulling me back toward the old identity. I had the enlightenment. I did not have the integration. And what I know now, what I did not know then, is that integration is not something that happens to you. It is something you build daily, deliberately, one small act from the new identity at a time. It was not until 2026, 7 years later, that the identity finally crystallized. Not because I had another insight, but because I had finally started doing the daily work of living from it, of practicing being her before I fully felt like her. And that is the difference that changes everything. Now, I want to be clear about something. The awakening in 2019 was real. The seeing was real. It mattered. It planted the seed. But here is what science says about why seeing alone is never enough. Neuroscience gives us a very clear answer to this. Insight, the moment of understanding, activates the prefrontal cortex. It creates a new neural connection, a new possibility. But that connection is thin. It is new. It has no myelin around it yet. It is slow and fragile compared to the old circuits that have been firing for decades. And here is what science says about how neural circuits become strong, not through understanding, through repetition, through emotional intensity, through acting from the new circuit, even imperfectly, even uncomfortably, again and again, until the myelin builds and the new response becomes as fast and automatic as the old one. Dr. Joe Dispenza explains it this way. Every time you think a thought, feel a feeling, or perform a behavior, you are signaling the same genes in the same way to produce the same proteins, to reaffirm the same identity. Change requires you to think, feel, and act as the new self, repeatedly, before the body and the brain accept it as real. In simple terms, the new identity is not installed by understanding it. It is installed by living it, daily, consistently, before it feels natural, before it feels true, before you fully believe it. The practice comes before the feeling, not the other way around. And so this is why the gap between awakening and integration can be years. not because the inside was wrong, but because nobody taught you that inside was only the beginning, that the real work, the daily, deliberate, unglamorous work of becoming, was still ahead. Okay? So if the old identity was absorbed without your permission, and if inside alone is not enough to change it, then how do you actually build a new one? And here is what I know from my own life and from working with others. It starts with a decision, not a feeling, not a motivation. A clear, committed decision about who you are choosing to be, stated in the present tense, as if it is already true. First, the title. Who are you known as? Not who do you want to become someday. Who are you right now? By decision. My title is not something I achieved. It is something I declared. I am someone who is unshakable. I am someone who goes for what I believe in, regardless of what others say. I am someone who is not hypnotized by external standards and expectations. That is not a goal. That is a standard I hold myself to today. Second, the standard. Identity without standards is just words. A standard is a non-negotiable way of being. The person I am becoming does not let external opinions move her from her direction. She does not accept who she used to be as who she is. She acts from the new identity, even when the old one is louder, especially then. Third, the daily practice. This is where most people stop. They declare the identity, they feel the inspiration, and then they go back to their ordinary day and live from the old circuits. Integration requires a daily practice that fires the new identity circuits consistently. Breathwork, meditation, journaling, power statements, movement. Not occasionally, every single day. This is the rewired method, not a shortcut, a commitment. Here is the truth. I am not yet the full version of who I am becoming. I want to be honest about that. The vision I hold for myself, the life, the impact, the woman I see when I close my eyes and feel into the future. I am not fully her yet, but here is what I know. I am always unshakable in the direction. I have always known what I wanted, and the things I have believed in deeply, without waiting for permission or proof. They have all come true, not because I forced them, but because I believed them at a level the subconscious could not ignore. And that is what identity actually is, not a destination you arrive at, a living commitment you make and remake every single day, a standard you hold, not because you have perfected it, but because you have decided it is who you are. The old identity said, I am someone shaped by what society expects of me. The new identity says, I am someone unshakable by external rules and standards. I go for what I believe in, no matter what people say. And slowly, day by day, the new circuits thicken, the old ones thin. And that is the rewire. There is a quote I keep coming back to from Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And what that means to me is not that becoming is easy. It is that becoming is the work, the real work, the work that everything else in your life is organized around, whether you realize it or not. And so the question is not whether you are becoming. You are always becoming. The question is whether you are becoming by design or by default. Now, before we close, I want to give you something concrete. Not just something to think about, something to do right now that begins the integration immediately. The identity declaration practice. I want you to take out a piece of paper or open your notes, and I want you to complete 2 sentences. The first sentence is this: my old identity, the one I absorbed without choosing, was someone who, fill in the blank after who. I'm gonna pause to let you write it down. Do not judge what arrives. Just write it honestly. The identity you have been living from. The story that has been running your decisions without your permission. And now the second sentence. My new identity, the one I am choosing right now, is someone who. The same here. Fill in the blank after who. Not who you want to be someday, who you are choosing to be today. Present tense, declared as already true. Now read that second sentence out loud, slowly, like you mean it. Because here is what science says. The voice speaking the new identity out loud, combined with the hand that wrote it, combined with the emotion you feel as you say it. That combination fires the new neural circuit with more intensity than thought alone ever could. And that is the beginning of integration, not a feeling, an act, a declaration made daily, until it becomes the truth the nervous system lives from. Identity is not something you find. It is not something that arrives after enough self-reflection or enough therapy or enough time. Identity is something you build, decision by decision, standard by standard, daily practice by daily practice. And here is what I know. Without a clear identity, you stay where you are. You accept who you used to be as who you are. You make changes at the surface while the foundation stays the same. And so nothing holds, nothing sticks. The cycle continues. But when the identity shifts, when you stop living from the absorbed story and start living from the chosen one, everything begins to reorganize around it. The decisions change, the standards change. The actions change, not through force, through alignment. That is what Rewired is, not a self-improvement program, an identity integration practice. Now your challenge this week is simple. Write your identity declaration every morning by hand. Then speak it out loud, before your phone, before the world tells you who to be today. Because the morning is the most powerful window for identity installation. The brain is still close to theta. The subconscious is still receptive. And what you declare in that window, consistently, emotionally, repeatedly, begins to become the new default, step by step, day by day. Now next week we go deeper into how you build that identity daily. The specific tools, the morning practices, and the science behind why they work. Episode 5 is where the new identity stops being a declaration and starts being a lived reality. If today resonated, share it with someone who is stuck between who they were and who they know they could be. Because sometimes the most generous thing we can do is hand someone the language for what they are already feeling. Everything we talk about on this podcast lives deeper inside Rewired. The community, the workbooks, the daily practices. You will find it at school.com/rewired-8276. The link is in the show notes. I am Vanara Loch. This is the Rewire. Stop managing your life. Start creating it. I will see you next week.